Deep in the Guatemalan jungle, the mighty Maya city of Tikal guarded a secret buried for centuries, deliberately hidden. And when archaeologists finally unearthed it, this discovery didn't just challenge what we thought we knew about the Maya. It pointed towards a powerful, mysterious empire hundreds of miles away in Mexico. Could Tikal, a jewel of Maya civilization, have actually been conquered, its destiny rewritten by outsiders from the colossal city of Teotihuacan? For years, the relationship between these two giants of ancient Mesoamerica, Tikal in Guatemala, a Maya powerhouse, and Teotihuacan, the sprawling, enigmatic city in central Mexico, has been a puzzle. We knew they interacted, traded, but how deep did it go? Was it just influence or something far more direct? Maybe even hostile? Then came the discovery. Not dusty pottery, but something vibrant, shocking. A painted limestone altar pulled from the earth near Tikal's core. Small, maybe waist high, about 3.5 by 6 feet, but covered in bright murals. And the images, they weren't typically Maya. The main figure wears a huge feathered headdress. The face, distinct almond eyes, a nose bar, double ear spools. These are telltale signs, strongly resembling depictions of the Teotihuacan storm god, a deity from central Mexico, clear as day, in the heart of Maya territory. That alone is stunning, but it's not just the pictures. The altar itself is built in a style called talud tablero, a sloping base topped by a flat panel. This is the architectural signature of Teotihuacan, rarely seen in Tikal at this time. It's like finding a Greek column holding up a Maya roof beam. It screams Teotihuacan. Archaeologists are clear. This wasn't Maya work. The technique, the symmetry, the subject matter, it points to an artist trained in Teotihuacan traditions. Not a copy, but the real deal. And what's depicted? Gods, not the Maya kings and rulers usually shown on monuments from this era. Another clue pointing away from local Maya tradition. So how did this Teotihuacan-style altar, painted by a Teotihuacan artist, showing a Teotihuacan god, end up here? The discovery came from a joint Guatemalan-U.S. project, starting back in 2019. They used LIDAR, laser mapping, to peer beneath the jungle canopy. The scans revealed hidden structures near Tikal's center, buildings with that distinct Teotihuacan architectural flair. Excavations followed, and between 2019 and 2021, they found the altar designated Structure 60X5, Sub 3. It was announced to the world in early April 2025. And where was it found? In a complex called Group 6DX5, just outside Tikal's main ceremonial core. Guatemala's Ministry of Culture noted this area seems to have been a residential zone for people from or with strong ties to Teotihuacan. A foreign neighborhood, it gets even more compelling. This complex Group 6 DXV sits right next to something astonishing found a few years earlier. A scaled-down replica of Teotihuacan's massive Citadel compound. A mini citadel right next to this Teotihuacan-style altar. In what looks like a Teotihuacan neighborhood within Tikal, this looks less like influence and more like an enclave, a foothold. And there's another twist. This entire complex seems to have been deliberately buried by the Maya later on, around the mid-6th century. Sealed off, creating a time capsule from the early Classic period, roughly AD 300 to 550. Why bury it? Did this foreign presence become uncomfortable? Something to be put away? To understand the impact, we need to rewind to a specific date, January 16th, 378 AD. Maya inscriptions call this the Entrada, the arrival. On this day, a figure named Siyaj Kak, meaning fire is born, arrived in Tikal. And on the very same day, Tikal's king, Chak Tokichak, or Jaguar Paw, died, suspiciously. Many scholars see this as a violent takeover. Stephen Houston put it bluntly. Teotihuacan was essentially decapitating a kingdom and installing a new king, Yax Nun Ahin I, who had clear Teotihuacan links, possibly even the son of a Teotihuacan ruler known as Spear Thrower Owl. This sounds like a power play, a conquest. We had hints before. A monument called the Tikal Marcador, found in the 1960s, mentions the arrival and spear thrower owl. We find green obsidian tools sourced from near Teotihuacan. We see that tablero architecture creeping into some Maya buildings. But scattered hints are one thing. A replica citadel and this painted altar are another. They suggest a deep physical presence. So what does this altar really add? Crucially, it's tangible proof of Teotihuacanos living, worshiping, right there in Tikal. Not just imported goods, but people. The quality suggests high-status individuals, nobles perhaps, commissioning art in their homeland style. They weren't just visiting, they were setting up shop, complete with their sacred spaces. Inside the altar, researchers found the skeleton of a child, buried seated, an unusual practice for the Maya then, but common in Teotihuacan rituals. Nearby, an adult buried with a green obsidian dart point, again linking back to central Mexico. Teotihuacan burial customs, Teotihuacan rituals happening in Tikal. It underlines a distinct cultural identity being maintained. This discovery pushes back against the idea of gentle, indirect influence. It strengthens the case for direct intervention. Invasion? Occupation? A colonial outpost? Tikal was clearly pulled deep into Teotihuacan's orbit. As researchers noted, Tikal seems to have been forever changed, maybe even scarred by this encounter. Why would Teotihuacan bother? Resources likely. The Maya region was rich in prized goods, exotic feathers, jade, cacao. Controlling Tikal could mean controlling access to this wealth. Projecting their ideology, their gods, into this new territory might have been part of cementing that control. And the impact on Tikal? That deliberate burial of the Teotihuacan neighborhood suggests deep ambivalence later on. Respect, maybe, mixed with resentment. A difficult memory the Maya needed to contain. Ironically, though, Teotihuacan's intervention might have inadvertently set Tikal up for later success. New dynasty, new connections, new ideas, even if the initial period was traumatic. Later Tikal rulers might have even looked back with a kind of nostalgia, co-opting Teotihuacan's symbols for their own prestige, conveniently forgetting the potentially darker side. The people living in that enclave were likely a mix. Teotihuacan practices in Maya-style residences suggest cultural blending, maybe intermarriage, families comfortable in both worlds. Tikal wasn't purely Maya, it was a cosmopolitan hub where different cultures met, mingled, maybe clashed. This finding forces us to rethink the whole Maya world. Did Teotihuacan's backing give Tikal an edge over rivals like Calakmul? Did Teotihuacan's eventual decline around 550 AD leave Tikal vulnerable to its enemies? The connections were complex, with ripple effects across the region. This pattern, a powerful state establishing a presence far from home, isn't unique. Teotihuacan itself had neighborhoods for foreigners. The Romans built colonies, Greeks settled in Egypt, Syrian merchants had outposts in Turkey. It's an old story. What feels different here is that deliberate sealing off of the neighborhood, suggesting a conscious effort by the later Maya to draw a line under that chapter. But mysteries remain. Why exactly was the complex buried? Who were the people living there? Diplomats, merchants, soldiers? What did Teotihuacan itself think about this venture? We only have the Maya side of the story. And what happened to this community when Teotihuacan collapsed? This single painted altar, this silent witness, throws open the door to a more dynamic, interconnected, and frankly, more dramatic ancient Mesoamerica. It shatters the image of isolated civilizations, revealing a world of power politics, cultural exchange, and foreign entanglement playing out over 1,600 years ago. The question isn't simply if Teotihuacan conquered Tikal. It's about understanding the depth and nature of that profound interaction that reshaped the Maya world. It makes you wonder, what other secrets, what other lost connections still lie hidden beneath the jungle floor, waiting to rewrite the history books once again?